Hello, beautiful soul sister, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Kiger. I'm a trauma-informed master mindset and money coach, as well as a financial expert of over 17 years. I have spent my entire adult life studying the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, and I plan on sharing all of the things with you on this journey together. This podcast is called the Soul Powered Podcast because it's my desire to share with you how to create a life that is powered by your soul, not by societal standards or what everyone else in your life tells you that you should be doing, but actually powered by your soul. The reason you'd want to do this is because I believe that this is the fastest way to unlock your portal to prosperity and become what I call the wildly wealthy woman. This is the portal that once you enter it, you gain access to the prosperity, abundance, wealth, time freedom, experiences, fulfillment that are your birthright. I don't believe that you came here to build someone else's dreams. I believe you came here to live your soul-powered life and live it to the fullest. And I plan on sharing with you exactly how to do that during our time together. So thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have so much fun together today. Let's dive in. Hi, my love, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. I am rested, I am recharged, and I have a lot of energy, and I want to give it all to you today. This is contrary to the last few weeks as I've been sick. I did notice a few coughing fits before we started, so I've got my water, I'm ready to go, and I'm so excited to be here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to ask you a question, okay? Because I think that there are some common misconceptions out there in the business industry, especially as it relates to women in business. So let me ask you this. What if the secret to showing up more powerfully in your business isn't just about doing more, okay? What if it's not actually, the answer is not actually just to take massive action with no regard to how it's going to impact your nervous system or your life, okay? So what would it be? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. So we're going to dive in, but first I'm going to tell you that this weekend, okay, let's talk, because you guys asked me like life updates. So let's talk a little bit about some life updates. This weekend, my husband and I went to our cabin in the woods. It is a family cabin that was his grandmother's and is now his parents, and they're going to be passing it on to us eventually. And it's such a beautiful space. It's a family home that we get to go hang out at. And I love it so, so, so much because so we're 5 miles back into the woods and not a single cell signal. Like if somebody wanted to get in touch with me, I was a little bit worried this weekend because the phone up there hasn't been working. They do have like a landline, but it hasn't been working. And so we left my daughter, home, right? Because I mean, she's an adult, so she can handle it, but we didn't have any cell signal. And so I was really nervous, but the phone did work because I manifested that. I was like, nope, I kept visualizing it like it's going to work so that I can just touch base with her from time to time. And, we don't have to go a whole weekend without talking to her. I know I'm working on it. My daughter is so amazing and she's able to do things on her own. And she's such a wonderful human, and I'm always still going to be her mother. So there's times where I still worry a little bit or still just want to be able to touch base with her and make sure that she is okay and just kind of check in with her, right? So this weekend, we had the most amazing time. We did a really cool drive just to kind of look around. The cabin is 2.5 hours outside of Pittsburgh, so it's like 2.5 to 3 hour drive. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to disconnect. I always feel so recharged when I come back from our cabin weekends. So we did like a really long drive where it was just like a scenic route. We got out a couple times just to look at the different water and the different scenery and the different rocks and this and that, the mountains. It's gorgeous up in this part of Pennsylvania. And so what do we do? Saturday night, my husband made a reservation for us to go to this beautiful lodge. Gosh, I forget the name of it. Clarion River Lodge, that's what it was. And the food was incredible. The service was incredible. We had such a good time. It's such a cute place and it's like such a whole vibe. We just enjoyed ourselves so much and really just rested, relaxed, played cards, like just fun time with one of my favorite humans, and it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a cool thing also. It's just dawned on me that like my two favorite humans in the world are my daughter and my husband. And, a lot of people would say like having a teenage daughter that they probably don't reciprocate that, but both my husband and my daughter have told me that I am also their favorite person in the world. That is a huge accomplishment for a teen mom. No, like a mother of a teenager, not even just a teen. I was a teen mom, but like a mother of a teenager for them to say that. And so, yeah, isn't it just beautiful? Like there's those people in your life who you're just like, I cannot live without. They're my favorite humans. And it does feel really, really good for those to be the people that are the closest to me in my life, my husband, my daughter. Okay, so we are here to talk about, and the reason I want to bring that up is because I want to talk about this concept of pushing and forcing and thinking that you have to just go and do more things in order to be successful. And if you listen to last week's episode, I was talking about how I was sick and feeling like I was living in survival mode for the last couple weeks before that. And, it's really interesting because I have been on this journey of realizing how important it is to take time for myself and to fill up my own cup and not just to try to push through because that's my nature is I've always been the type of person who was having to move away from something negative in my life. Like I realized this that I have always wanted to move away from pain. And I've never really lived a life until recently where I was doing things simply because I wanted to, not because I absolutely have to. Does that resonate? So my nervous system's imprint is we have to work really hard for success, right? This is all what I saw growing up. We have to work really hard for success. We have to struggle, we have to hustle, we have to cry, we have to create like a lot of chaos in order for things to fall into place. And this is because that was the imprint of my nervous system for so long, that's the way that I lived as well. And so I wouldn't allow for ease and grace and flow and rest and recharging and releasing and just being, right? And I think that if we look at how rest actually works, and the fact that we are literally, when we are just pushing and forcing, it's kind of like you're going to the gym every single day and you're not giving your body any kind of ability to rebuild the muscle. So that's what creates injury, right? We understand this from a physical perspective. We understand this from a battery perspective. If you look at a battery, the battery can't just keep giving and giving and giving. It eventually needs to be recharged. It's how electricity works, right? Like if you are harnessing only this much, okay, I don't understand exactly how a battery works, but like I get the fact that there's a certain amount of juice that it has, and it's going to be able to produce a certain amount of energy, and then you have to recharge it. And so that happens with us every single day, right? As we wake up, we do our thing, we exhaust all of our energy, and then we go back and we recharge. But sometimes we don't recognize, especially I think in this industry, as an online entrepreneur or someone who works from home, I often find myself like just because I love what I do, I sometimes forget that it's work. And so I'm constantly giving and I'm creating. And in my mind, there's like these just all of this stuff that's like constantly funneling through and all these downloads and all these different ideas for workshops and these different programs. And like I'm always adding to my signature program, the Aligned Money program. Like I'm making that the best possible money program that exists on the planet. And so that requires thought and that requires energy expenditure and that requires me getting on camera and recording and it requires me doing a lot of outlining for different trainings and things. Like there's a lot of output that's happening over here, even though it doesn't necessarily look like it. And that's where I think that we have to get honest with ourselves. And so today I want to talk about why rest is so essential for success and how it helps you show up in alignment with your power, because this is something that people as a society have deemed to be lazy, unproductive, or that it's like some luxury that we get to rest and still receive. It's almost like, it's almost been demonized if you think about it, right? Like you're just a lazy pieces, right? If you want to like rest. And sometimes I think that definitely came from our childhood as well, right? Well, not sometimes, like all the time, right? I don't know if you're like, if you grew up anything like me, but like as it related to just relaxing or sleeping in on a Saturday, like that was not acceptable in our household. You know, taking time to rest, that was always like this hyper vigilant child because I would get yelled at and I would get in trouble, right? If there was things that needed done around the house and I was taking a moment to rest. So you may resonate with that as well. Like it's a deeply imprinted system in your nervous system, really. It's this protective pattern that we have to not want to rest. And so let's talk about some of the common misconceptions as it relates to rest and how this kind of ties back to even my cabin weekend, right? But again, the misconceptions are that we are lazy, that we're unproductive, or we don't care about our life if we're just resting. But from a scientific and an energetic perspective, we have to look at, okay, rest is actually a way to regulate the nervous system, to bring our bodies back to safety, because we are constantly, as a society, living in a place of activation. And if you look at all animals have the ability to go into an activated or protected state. They're not supposed to stay there though. So that's why you even see like dogs, right? When they're on high alert, or like my two dogs, they fight, right? Not fight, but they wrestle. And they'll sit there and wrestle back and forth. And then when they're done resting, or I'm sorry, wrestling, we're talking about wrestling today. When they're done wrestling, they shake all that energy off, and then they kind of go back to what they were doing because they were high in activation, and then they quite literally they shake that energy off. That's what they're doing. It's like even the phrase like shake it off, right? Like, or the song. So my point with all this is that animals know to do this, but we as humans, because of the society that we live in, because of the societal constructs of like grinding and working as hard as you possibly can and going to work for, 10, 12, like it's almost like this sign of we should respect you, we should honor you, we should think that you're incredible if you can go for 24 hours straight. Like that's not admirable, because at some point we have to realize that there's only so much energy that we can put out. And I'm not saying that like it's not admirable if you're working hard on your dream and your vision. It is. And I also want to offer that there is the potential that you are making this take longer for yourself by not taking breaks and not taking rest and not recharging. Because what ends up happening, and I'm not sitting here on some high horse telling you that you should stop doing things. What ends up happening, like, is what happened to me a couple weeks ago. So this happens to me as well. And I believe that, like, yes, we have the ability to get sick. I do think that I was around people who were sick, not on my necessarily my own accord, but I was around people who were sick. And then, yes, I got sick. But also, why was my immune system so vulnerable enough to accept that sickness and take that sickness on? Well, a lot of it was because I was burning at both ends. I was burning the candle at both ends. And I think there's levels and layers to this because it doesn't always feel like I am in the moment. I also had a root canal, which I know that plays a part in, potentially creating some opportunity for a fluctuation in the nervous or the immune system. But my point with this is that I'm not here teaching this from a place of I get this all right all of the time. I've just grown like substantially in this area, and I clearly still have room to grow as well. So it's part of my normal processing of life is that when things occur that I don't prefer, when things happen that I'm not enjoying, like these last 2 weeks of being sick, I will sit and look at, I will reflect, I will recapitulate, I will look back and say, how did I, or how did I make this worse on myself? How did I create this? What could I have done differently? If anything, right? I understand some things, yes, you just get sick. But if there are things that I could change, or there are things that I could make better, or in the future it only lasts a week and not 2.5 weeks, well, these are some of the lessons that I have uncovered. So when we look at rest, that what's actually tangibly happening is, like, when you go to the gym and you're working out and you're lifting weights or you're running, you're breaking down your muscles. That's physically what you are doing. You are breaking them down. And then during the rest days, they are rebuilding. They are getting stronger during the rest days. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? You're literally getting stronger when you rest. This isn't a sign of laziness. And it's not a badge of honor that you can go 24 hours straight without taking rest. This was created from our society to have a society of people who are workhorses for the ones who want to stay in power. There's a book called Do Nothing by Celeste Headley, and it talks about how this society was created through the Industrial Revolution and all of the things. And so definitely check that book out, Do Nothing, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It goes a lot deeper here. As always, it always goes a lot deeper than they want us to know. But it is realizing that rest is an active practice. Rest is where you get stronger. Rest is where you allow the ideas to solidify, to integrate, to come through. So this weekend, I made the decision, right? Because I knew I wasn't feeling well. And as soon as I started realizing I'm perpetuating this, I am also allowing this to happen, and it's time for me to make a change, I started to implement some things that I've been saying that I was going to do for a while, but didn't do because of one reason or another. One of those is that it is mandatory for me and my husband, or just me, or me, my husband, and my daughter, to take some sort of break once a month, where we either go up to our cabin, we take our camper somewhere, we go on we actually go on vacation, we go somewhere, we fly somewhere, whatever it is. It's mandatory to have those disconnection days. That's not a question anymore in my life. And that happened as a result of me being sick over the last 2.5 weeks. So even though I love what I do, it's still a lot of energy expenditure. And if I'm not filling my cup back up enough, it's eventually going to get to a place where I am drained. And then potentially sometimes what will happen is your body will allow you to get sick as a form of allowing you to rest. I can't tell you how much I slept over the last 2 weeks too. I mean, there were nights where it was like 15 hours, right? Like literally did nothing but sleep. I was fighting off something, but there's a part of me that's also like, okay, yes, but did you just really need that? And where were you not listening along the way that could have stopped something like that from happening? Does that make sense? So I just believe, and there's this story that my mentor always tells about how, the universe will leave signs along your path. And so just imagine that you're walking down a path and there's a little pebble on the ground. That's a sign from the universe, but it's like small enough that you're like, I don't really know if that's a sign, so I'm going to keep going. And you step over the pebble, and then there's like a bigger rock, and it's like, that's probably a sign from the universe, but I'm sort of doing something right now, so I'm not really interested in like resting and stopping. So I'm just going to keep going. Then you jump over that rock, and the rocks just keep getting bigger and bigger. And then eventually you get to this boulder that is completely blocking your access to go any further along this path. And when you get to that boulder, you don't have any choice but to turn around and go a different direction. And the last 2.5 weeks were what felt like that boulder for me. That is, and again, I'm taking extreme ownership of this situation. Because yes, I mean, are there extenuating factors? Am I actually sick through things? I do believe that those things can happen. And I also want to look at how could I have added to it, perpetuated it, or made it last longer. And part of that was not taking the time and not looking at those pebbles when the universe gave me those to look at far beyond, just last week or the week before, that maybe I have been overlooking. So I share these things in real time because I want you to see that you're not alone in this, and that if you're doing these kinds of things, that it's okay. And the only thing that you can do is make a different decision next time. So when you recognize the sign, that's when you can do something about it. Or you can set up systems like I'm doing, where every single month we're doing something to disconnect. I also started reading a book by one of the girls in my mastermind, Renee Feek. I don't know. I'll have to get you the spelling of her name. But anyway, the book is called Cycle Syncing Your Business. And so she's talking about how we have these different cycles, right? Which I love learning about. And I have known of this concept for a while, but again, same thing. Have I been following it? Have I known to take a rest during my cycle? And, have I been following the things that I know to follow? And the answer to that is not all of them, no. I believe that success and building the life that you want is happening at one step at a time. And so I don't think that we have all of this focus to say, I want to wholesale change my whole life. I think that we need to do it in steps and we need to make sure that we're prioritizing those steps. And sometimes it's not going to look the way that we think it is. Meaning, sometimes prioritizing rest, you're going to sit there and think that my business is going to go crashing to the ground. My income is going to stop. My clients are going to, like, everything's going to go haywire if I take these couple days off. But I can promise you, I had the exact same thoughts. And the more that I did it, I didn't start with taking 2 weeks off at a time. I started with a couple days going up to the cabin. And then maybe it was, 3 days taken off and nothing happened with my business, by the way. Everything keeps going, everything keeps moving because I have the systems and the structures and the support to do that. So I used to think that if I took this time, that something bad was going to happen. But I've just been able to show my nervous system at this point that, like, we've done this enough times, nothing bad has happened. Your business is still here. All your clients are still here. Everyone's still incredible getting results. And half of them didn't even think about where you were, right? They didn't even know you were away. Not, everybody doesn't need me 24 hours a day is the point. So, and they don't need you 24 hours a day. Your business doesn't need you 24 hours a day. And as a matter of fact, thinking that it does is going to keep you stuck and perpetuating this cycle of I've got to keep giving and giving and giving. And there's going to be a part of you that says at some point, when's it enough? And it's going to force you into this place of burnout if you don't catch it early on enough. So burnout is an extended period of time like I had over the last 2 weeks, right? Which I had that experience where I took 6 months off early on in my business because I started working with my shaman and that was what my soul wanted. It was like, you've been burning yourself out for 13 years at that time. And so you got to go rest. You have to recover. You've got to allow yourself to just exist. And that ended up being about a period of 5 to 6 months that I took off of everything. And that was healing and life changing. But you don't necessarily have to do that, right? You can just do certain things every single day or every single month and start to systematize those things. So we'll get to that here in a second. So let's talk about how this affects the four bodies, right? How rest affects the four bodies. So if we look at the mental body and your thoughts and your clarity, thinking about how hard it can be. Okay, if you're in a place of activation, let's say you're in a fight or flight response all of the time or a lot of the time, or you're working in your business and you're feeling stressed or frustrated or angry or whatever it is, because business is business and it's not always freaking easy, right? It's why everyone doesn't do it. So sometimes you get frustrated with things. Sometimes, you have to do things you don't want to do. Sometimes you can delegate those things and other times you can't. You've just got to figure out how to do this yourself. So when it comes to being activated in that place of frustration all of the time, what ends up happening is when the nervous system gets activated, our analytical mind goes out the window. Literally, it shuts off. And I can feel that happening, by the way. I don't know if this is like, start to notice when you get triggered, you will feel that shift taking place. It's like I no longer am thinking from my rational brain. I'm just thinking from my emotional brain. So what ends up happening is you're trying to create your offers or you're trying to create your products or you're trying to create your content or whatever it is that you're doing from this place of activation, from this place of I'm so overwhelmed that I have to do this. And there's no creativity that's there, right? Like, think about that. If your analytical brain, your critical faculty is turned off, then you're not going to be able to think critically about what it is that you actually want to put out in the world. And so resting and recovering allows you to open up that creativity and allows that soul power to begin to flow through. It's like spirit can come and start to flow through you because you're an open conduit, but you're closed off when you are triggered or when you are in this place of activation and stress and anxious all of the time in business. Does that make sense? Looking at the emotional piece, okay, so we have the emotional body, we talked about the mental, talk about the emotional. Again, preventing burnout, like rest is going to be the thing that allows for you to not get to a place where I did, where I was forced to take 6 months off. Nothing was working in my business. I was banging my head against the wall. I literally felt so lost. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was entering into what my shaman calls the void, which is kind of like this cocoon phase in your life where you just don't know up from down, you don't know left from right, you don't know hot from cold, you don't know what it is that you're supposed to be doing in this world, and you just feel very, very lost. So it's one of those things that can happen when we get into this place of burnout. And so allowing yourself to rest is going to make either that burnout time shorter or maybe not happen at all. And that's really what I would prefer for you. Physical energy, right? So let's talk about the physical body. Like, I have to be physically healthy in order to be able to show up and do this podcast with you. Like, I don't have the ability to be choking and, coughing and having all of these issues, low energy, etc., because you wouldn't tune into this if all I was doing was hacking up a lung every 2 seconds. But my physical body does need to have a level of energy in order for me to show up and do the work, no matter what it is. No matter what it is that you're doing, if you're content creating, if you're creating physical products, you have to have physical energy. It's like we can't get around that. And so resting is a part of that. Okay. And then spiritual. So let's talk about the spiritual body. This is again where we get all of that access to our intuition. I cannot tell you how many downloads I got this weekend, how much clarity I got this weekend, how much because I disconnected my brain from this thing, right? Our phones all the freaking time. And thinking about my business and thinking about my offers and thinking about my clients and thinking about the next step, thinking about my trip that's coming up and thinking about all of these things. Instead of doing that, I was just present. I was fully present. And when you're fully present and you're resting and you're giving your body that place to recover, and your mind and your spirit and your soul that place to recover, it's like you end up opening up this floodgate of information. And it's always like a paradox because we want clarity. And it's like, I want so badly to figure this thing out. But when we're forcing it to come through, it's like the universe is like, no, that's not the way that works. So if you want more information, if you want to access your soul power, if you want to use the guidance of the unseen freaking realm that's here to support you, your spirit squad, your ancestors, your higher self, like God, the universe, angels, whatever it is, if you want that, you've got to slow the fuck down. Like, you have to slow down, period. You don't have another option. Now, it's fine if you want to keep going and doing what you're doing. You have free will and you're allowed to do whatever you want. But if you want to access these things and you want that level of support, you've got to be the one to send a sign to the universe to say, I'm willing to listen. And listening doesn't mean like I'm going to have something playing in the background all the time, or there's going to be TV on all the time, or podcasts on all the time, or radio on all the time, or Spotify on, like social media. All of those things are cluttering up your brain. Period. They are. And if you're in a creative space where you've got to think of content ideas, or you've got to think of business ideas, or you've got to be in any kind of creative space, you're going to struggle if you don't disconnect. And that's just the way that it is. So let's talk about ways that we can practically bring these tools and incorporate rest into our lives. So let's talk about that. So one way to do this is through micro rests, which is like daily things. So inside of the Align Money program, I have something called Rise Rituals, which are all things that you can utilize to get into a resting state, but also have that resting state be in the energy of abundance so that you can kind of channel some information around how to continue bringing in more wealth, bringing in more abundance, because that's just really what my clients want. But at the same time, these are not compartmentalized. So these are things that you can use to just access that rest, access that intuition. And so ways like this, things like a rise ritual. Okay, so let me give you some examples of some rise rituals. This would be like making sure that you're giving yourself a bubble bath once a week if you enjoy to do that, or going for a walk to disconnect and maybe not listening to any music, just putting on some binaural beats and just walking, or spending some time with your friends, having a really positive and powerful conversation, or going like I did, right? Going up to a cabin, or going out in nature, going to the beach, meditating, taking a yoga class. All of these kinds of things are going to be ways that you can start to disconnect from your everyday life and give your mental and or physical body a rest. So other ways that are really another thing that's really important, which is probably even bigger. I don't want to say bigger because they're all important. So I don't like to put a place of importance on these because they're all really important. But having boundaries within your schedule. I used to like pick up my computer at 8 a.m. and not put that thing down until probably 8 p.m. And the crazy part about that is that's when I was making the least amount of money in my business because all I was doing was like keeping myself busy for the sake of being busy. And so having boundaries in place where I know that I'm going to sit down every single day or however often I'm going to be working. I like to work a 4-day work week, but I'm working from 9:30 to 12:30 every day in this potent, powerful way where I'm using my brain, I'm using creative things. I'm 3 hours a day of like really honed in work. And then I have the rest of the day free. So if I want to do podcasting, I can do that. That's separate, right? Or if I want to do networking or I want to connect with you guys in the DMs or I want to have conversations or Facebook lives or Instagram lives or do some TikTok stuff, like I can still do all of that if I want to. But I'm really, really becoming more organized around this boundary setting, time blocking. I have time blocks where and I'm getting better at this, so please know that I'm no expert at this, but I've realized how much freedom I have in my life when I do set these boundaries and have these time blocks in place. So I have time blocks for personal things, just because as an entrepreneur, like I'm used to having structure. When I go into a job, somebody else has created that structure for me. I don't have that structure here. And I'm not a very structured person, like naturally. Or at least put it this way, I didn't learn how to be structured and organized. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I just started figuring this all out by myself. But I can tell you, especially as like someone who's neurodivergent, I would say that having structures in place is really, 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 really helpful because those routines, those schedule blocks, those time blocks are like super helpful for me so that I don't get overwhelmed and think, what do I need to do today? Well, no, because I sit down on Sunday and I time block out everything that I'm doing for the week. And so I don't have any question. Like at this time, I'm podcasting. Like this was on my schedule. So this is what I'm doing. I don't have to think about what am I doing today. It's on my schedule. I'm doing it. After this, I'm going to lunch with my business partners. And like that's what we're doing, right? So it's all scheduled out. Daily rituals is another way. So I'm going to give you like what, two more. Daily rituals, having some sort of daily rituals, again, where you are using some of your rise rituals, where you are having morning routines, evening routines. I call this like my alignment hour every single day. So when I wake up, I get up at 6 a.m. Sometimes I stay in bed and cuddle with Eric for a little while, just not going back to sleep, but kind of just staying warm, especially during the wintertime because it's so cold. And I love being in the warm bed, but I'll stay in bed, sometimes read for a little bit. But I'm doing my morning routine from 6:30 to 7:30. And then 7:30 to 8:30, I'm moving my body, I'm working out, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm doing the treadmill, or I'm watching a, video on YouTube or something and doing that. I love shout out to Grow with Joe. She's so cute and she's just like the most fun. I really like working out with her. So things like that where you have those routines and then from 8:30 to 9:30 I'm showering, getting ready for the day, whatever it is. And then I work from 9:30 to 12:30. And then in those work blocks I have things that I'm doing. So here's the thing. If you know that you're getting everything done that you need to on a daily basis, then from 12:30 on, I can choose, right? I call that like red, green, and yellow time. So my red time is stuff like my morning routine. I'm not scheduling anything over my red time. Red time for the week is, and if you're looking at this from a time block perspective, red time is time that you can't be doing anything else. So it's doctor's appointments, things that you are committed to. And then green time is like my green time is 9:30 to 12:30 every day, or 4 days a week, where I'm literally just working on my business and I'm being the CEO. I'm creating things. I'm doing like all of this from a place of intuition. I'm basically creating, right? I'm creating content, I'm creating ideas, I'm creating programs, I'm creating workshops, I'm masterminding with other people. And then from 12:30 on, I have yellow time, which sometimes yellow time can be like, okay, what do I need to work on? So I might be able to tap into that and see like, do I really feel like I need to rest? And if the answer is yes, then I'll go and like meditate or I'll do a breathwork session, or maybe it's like, no, I need to organize some different things for taxes. And so I'll work on personal items, right? So there's all of these different beautiful ways. And I teach all of this, of course, inside of the Aligned Money Program. But realistically, there's so many different ways that you can create systems, structures, routines that will really support you. And it kind of takes some time. I'm not going to lie. Like it takes some time to incorporate all this into your life, but then after a while, it's like your whole life is like this very well-oiled machine. And that kind of sounds robotic, but it's not. It allows for you to have the flexibility to go and do the other things that you want. Having that structure is actually very important. And so the last item on this is, again, making sure that you are taking big picture rest too. So vacations, sabbaticals, extended downtime. I'm definitely not one that comes to naturally. I worked, really, really hard throughout the years. And so I thought that that was a badge of honor to work hard. And so I definitely am not perfect at this yet. But one of the things, and I bought this other planner and I'm really excited about it. I found it on TikTok Shop. But it kind of has like this one sheet at the beginning of the planner that you can map out all your vacations for the year. And so I've just decided that it's perfect time of year for me to do this. And it's okay. Okay, it's from the Daily. If you struggle with this, then you might want to check out this planner. It's from the Daily. It's spelled Dailee, the Daily. And it's just their 2025 like organizational planner. I think they have a college one too. So if you go on to the Daily on TikTok, I can't wait to get this planner. And if you want to learn about it, like I'll show you guys. But it's really like super, super organized, which is just what I've realized I've needed. I need things to be really organized. And so at the beginning of the year or end of the previous year, I will sit down, which I'm doing this week for 2025, as soon as I get my planner. But I'm going to look at like, okay, here's the vacations that I want to take this year, so that I'm not going 6 months through the year and being like, I haven't taken a vacation yet and I'm burned out and I'm exhausted and I just really want to get somewhere and I'm so tired. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore, right? Every single month, we're going to have some way of disconnecting and getting away. And so it's not getting away from our life. It's just getting away from this idea that we have to be on all of the time. And again, that do nothing book really helps. So if you want to space yours out, maybe you're not going every single month, maybe you can. Maybe you have the ability to do that with your time freedom. And I would definitely highly recommend it, because every single time you come back, you're so much more rested. You're so much more recharged. You have so much more creativity. And that's how I feel this week, is like, I have this light, like this fire under my ass now that I've almost like never felt before as it relates to my business. Because I'm like, listen, if I know that I have downtime, then I can go as hard as I want. I don't have to work 3 hours a day if I don't want to. I can work 10 hours a day if I want. I'm a generator. I can go in human design. My human design is a generator. I could go as long as I want to. So I don't need the same kind of rest as other people. I choose that so I don't burn myself out, because I know that I have the tendency to go too hard. And I will go for 24 hours in straight and not, whatever, not how much I need to. I know that I have that tendency to do that. So this is really where it's important to understand that rest is not actually here to hinder your progress. It amplifies your progress. It amplifies your progress because it allows you to be this incredible, bright, clarity filled. What's the word I'm looking for? It allows for you to be this light version of yourself. Now you have clarity. Now you have this connection to yourself. Your cup is full. And what happens when your cup is full? Like, imagine that you're pouring water into a cup. Well, if you just allow that cup to fill up, and then what happens eventually is it will overflow onto all of the other areas of your life, instead of you tipping your cup over every couple minutes and saying, oh, this person needs this, and my husband needs that, and my daughter needs that, and my clients need this, and so needs that. And like, let's just keep pouring water out of ourselves, out of our cup, right? It's like, no, what if we just allow ourselves to be completely full, and then we overflow into other people and the people in our lives. And people will recognize that. They will see the difference and they will notice, holy shit, she has something different. Her life is full. She feels good about herself. That energy is not going to lie. And it's going to allow you to be more magnetic than you've ever been before. This isn't something that is just doing it just to do it. If you need a motivation behind it, know that it actually is an active practice that will help you make more money in the long run. Okay, so if you need this to tie back to a financial thing, that's fine too. But it is an investment in your life and in your business. So I know you might be thinking, I don't have any time to rest. I don't have the ability. My business isn't where I want it to be. But maybe your business isn't where you want it to be because you actually don't give yourself time to rest. And if you gave yourself time to rest, you could work smarter and not harder. I know that that sounds a little bit like paradoxical to what the rest of society is saying, but this is the concept of living a soul-powered life. It's not just to come here and do more. Denzel Washington had this incredible speech he gave. I think it was like a college somewhere, so you can look it up on YouTube. But he said, don't mistake movement for progress. Just because you're moving doesn't mean that you're going anywhere. And this is the idea of this is the cog that they want us to be in the system. Just keep going, Energizer Bunny. Just keep going, because if you just keep going and going and going and you keep chasing this next thing, you're not going to have any time to go inward. You're not going to have any time to go into your power and realize how fucking powerful you actually are. You're not going to be able to go inward because you're not going to give yourself any time to realize that we're running a game on you. Like, that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Society, we are cogs in this system. And until we decide to break free from it, it continues. And the people who have power get to keep it. But when we decide to say, no, actually, I am of the light and my power is way brighter than anyone who is coming from the dark and wants to keep me a cog in the system, then I get to go out and shine a light on what you all are doing, because I care enough about humanity to have them not chasing after the lies that you have them believing, which is that if I just keep grinding, if I just keep working harder, if I just keep going, just keep exhausting myself to the point of no freaking end, I'm not going to have the ability then to go inward and see what life is actually all about, which is following what lights you up and your soul power. And if you don't even know what that is, you don't even know what your purpose is here on this earth, I would not stop at anything but to find it. I had this conversation with Eric as we were driving home. We have these really deep conversations, especially when we have these road trips. It's so fun. And I just realized, like, for me, I don't have to do this online business thing, right? Like, I don't have to do it. I don't have to do a podcast. I don't have to do social media. I don't need to do any of it. And I could hang it all up and just, like, I don't know, be like one of those Pilates moms where I just get to go to Pilates every day and I just get to, go sit at a pretty cafe, and like I could be like, I don't know, an influencer and just recording myself all day doing stuff and like whatever. That's great. That's wonderful for people who want to do that. But I was telling him, I'm like, it's like this burning thing in my heart that it's like, if not this, then what? I can't do anything else. I can't do anything else but be here with you and help you to live a better life. Like, it doesn't, I'm too far into this now to do anything different, because my soul gets lit up by this passion and drive that I have to help raise the vibration of the collective and to do it in the world of finance, because that's how we take our power back in this society that we live in. We realize that it's a matrix. We realize that we're in the system. You got to wake up from the system, and then you got to take your power back from the system. And I can't sit around and know that this is happening and not tell anyone. It's tied to my passion. It is far too big of a hole in my life for me to just not do it. But my husband, he's like, I don't really have anything like that yet. And I'm like, that's okay. This is where you get to explore. If you don't know what your purpose is on this earth, that's what you should be spending your time doing, not chasing after a dollar, not building someone else's dreams, not living this life of like mediocrity because someone told you should do this. That's not what you're here for. If you don't know what your purpose is on this planet, I would invite you to spend some time over the next few months soul searching. Because if you're alive, the law of Dharma means that if you are alive, there's a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. There's a reason that the creator of the entire universe decided that this world wasn't complete without you. So if you don't know what that purpose is and you don't know what that Dharma is, then I would invite you to find it, to explore. And the way that you do that, babe, is in the silence, is in the slowing down, is in the resting. It's not running a million miles an hour. You see, there's guidance that's been trying to show up for you. There's signs, there's things that have been shown to you. I know this because this is how the spirit world works. But if you aren't slowing down enough to listen, how you gonna hear? If you're going a million miles an hour, imagine that you're driving in a car and you're going a million miles an hour. You're not looking at all of the billboards. You're not looking at all the different cars. You're not looking at all the different things. That's what you're doing in life. It's like your higher self or the universe or your spirit guides is here like, hey, I have guidance for you that would make this a lot easier. And you're just running as fast as you can. And you don't even have the opportunity to see that. This is coming to mind. It's kind of like a animal in the wild. If you're a bunny in the wild, and there's a fox that's chasing you, that's here to eat you. You're running as fast as you can because you're in survival mode and you're trying to just save your own life. It's understandable if there's a real threat in your life, but you've probably, in this analogy, have run past fields of carrots and potatoes and whatever else little bunnies eat. You don't stop to pick a couple carrots. You're not here to stop and smell the roses. You're fighting for your life. But see, here's the thing. You're no longer fighting for your life. You may feel like it, and your nervous system is in that survival mode because it still believes it needs to fight for your life. But you're not really fighting for your life anymore. You can stop and smell the roses. Everything that that bunny needs is right there. If it's just running through the forest and there's no fox chasing it, whose fault is it that it doesn't pick the carrots? Whose fault is it that it doesn't have the abundance that the literal earth is trying to give it for free? Slow down and understand that rest is an active practice, and it is very much so the part of why it is that you're not where you want to be right now. So give it a try. You don't have to do this for 6 months like I did. Just give it a try. Ask your higher self, sit with yourself. How how would you have me rest? What kind of practices can I start to include into my daily regimen? What would you have me do? How would you have me listen? Tap into your soul power and ask. The guidance is there and it's ready for you. Okay. So we'll end with this, that rest is the recharge that you need to create the life and business that you truly desire. I'm going to say that again. Rest is the recharge that you truly need to create the life and the business that you desire. So give that to yourself. You don't need to be in a rush. Your soul's not in a rush, babe. Your soul knows that it's here to learn, it's here to experience, and it's here to gain knowledge and value from this earth. So your soul is not in a rush, babe. You are. Slow down, smell the roses, grab some carrots, and start to enjoy your life. Because all this time that you're spending worrying about the next thing, your life is passing you by. And it's in those moments of rest that you're actually just living your life and you're being present. And those are the most magical things. I cannot tell you, I get emotional thinking about it. I was multiple times this weekend just looking at my husband as he's talking to me. And he's like a projector in human design. So he's like my personal coach. He's so amazing. He's the best person on the face of the planet. And aside from my daughter. And I literally was so present with him this weekend that I remember just looking him in the eyes and just being like, this is the most fulfilling moment of my life. But like there were multiple ones of those. And I just felt so full and so overflowing because I was being completely present. And I realized how much I don't need to get anywhere. This is my life and I love it. And I'm having a fucking blast living it. But the reason that it doesn't feel that way is because 9 times out of 10, I'm not actually living my life. I'm not being present. I'm in the future. I'm in the past. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. Bringing myself down to a place of active resting is only going to allow more moments of that presence in my life. Okay. So rest is not a reward for your hard work. It's the foundation of your success. And you've got to start learning how to bring that rest in so that you can be recharged and be overflowing in that energy of overflow and not just pouring from this empty cup. It's not going to serve you long term, and it's not what I want for you. And I know it's not what you want for yourself. So I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here with me. I'm off to lunch. I hope that you rest. Please screenshot this episode if you found value and share it on Instagram and tag me at Rise with Rebecca and let me know. Okay, this will be a commitment that I want from you. Let me know what you're going to start to do to rest this week and just give it a try and see how much better you feel. Even if it's a meditation, a walk, a breathwork session, a yoga session, a yoga class, whatever, a bubble bath. You're worthy of it. You're deserving of it. You don't have to ask for permission. You're allowed to do this. Your business isn't going to come crashing to the ground. You're going to be fine. And as a matter of fact, it may be the very thing that's going to propel you to the next level. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Soul Sister, thank you so much for tuning in to this entire episode today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do me a favor and leave a quick review? This allows me to reach more people, and if you found value, I know others in your life will too. Also, be sure to share this episode on social media along with your biggest takeaways so I know what resonates most with you and I can keep the good stuff coming. And if you're looking to dive into a deeper connection than this podcast will allow, consider checking out my Rise to Riches experience in the show notes below. I would love to hear how these messages have helped you take one step closer to living your soul-powered life and becoming the wildly wealthy woman. Sis, let's continue to rise together. I'll see you next time. Bye.